And the message of the book is, I mean, there are several, but in a nutshell, it's like, it's not just that you can't understand Bad Bunny or his music or anything that he does as an artist without understanding the history of Puerto Rico. And I think if that wasn't clear before, it's clear now than ever, now that we saw the Super Bowl performance, right? Where all these people who had not been exposed to him go, oh my gosh, like there's clearly all of these meanings here.
I believe as an educator, something that is really important is to meet students where they are. And I think when you want to talk about questions like race, gender, sexuality, giving students something they're already familiar with to as like a point of departure is really effective. I went to college wanting to learn this stuff because I didn't learn it before. And I was looking for places and professors and classes that were going to let me focus on the things that spoke to me and that I cared about. And, going back to one of your very first questions, Pam. So like one of the reasons I value being a professor is I can do that for my students too.
Most students who come in the class, even when they're Puerto Rican, they like haven't gotten this history. And a lot of them are like, they're blown away, they're angry. I mean, you should see my students' faces when I tell them about the sterilization of Puerto Rican women, or you should see my students' faces when they even learn about something like the gag law that made it illegal to have a flag in your own home. They're just like, how is this legal? Why didn't we know this? And none of them would be in the classroom if it weren't for Bad Bunny. And so that's when people think like, oh, do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Are you profiting off of Bad Bunny and exploiting him? Well, I'm not profiting off of Bad Bunny. I have to teach classes no matter what. But at the end of the day, his music is about educating people on Puerto Rico with all of its complexities, and we're able to use his music to do that.
Hola, hola, welcome back to Café con Pam, the bilingual podcast that celebrates the power of our stories, the medicine in our voices, and the magic of reclaiming who we are. Esta semana, I have not one, but two incredible guests, Vanessa Díaz and Petra Rivera-Rideau. If you've been paying attention to Bad Bunny's meteoric rise, especially if you watched that Super Bowl halftime show just days ago, where 128 million people saw Puerto Rico through sugar canes, dominoes, piraguas, and the flag. Then you know about these two scholars. They are the creators of the Bad Bunny syllabus and the authors of FKN R, How Bad Bunny Became the Global Voice of Puerto Rican Resistance, which just dropped a few weeks ago. I'm so excited for this interview. Vanessa is an associate professor at Loyola Marymount University, and Petra teaches at Wellesley College. Together, they've turned Bad Bunny from a pop star that people dismiss into rigorous academic study and fun, I would add, proving that reggaeton is scholarship, that Puerto Rican resistance is history, and that joy and protest are not opposites. They've been featured everywhere, from NPR to Rolling Stone to the Washington Post to Bad Bunny himself talking about their courses on Jimmy Fallon. I'm sure all of you remember that. It was them. En este episodio, you're going to learn why Latinas in academia are presumed incompetent and how Vanessa and Petra have refused to wait for permission to claim their expertise. También, we're going to explore how Bad Bunny's work is a sonic archive of resistance and why that Super Bowl performance had people in tears, including me, while also making the president furious. And we'll dive into what it actually costs to do groundbreaking work while constantly having to prove you belong. This interview is deep, y'all. If you've ever felt undervalued in professional spaces, doubted whether your culture, quote, counts as serious enough, or wondered why you have to work twice as hard for half the recognition, este episodio es para ti. Este episodio es para everyone. This is the one time when I will say, please listen to this. Y bueno, sin más, here is my conversation with the brilliant, unapologetic revolutionaries, Vanessa Díaz and Petra Rivera-Rideau. Petra, Vanessa, welcome to Café con Pam. I'm so delighted to have you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yes. I have your book. I have a lot of notes, like notes. We never get through all of them, but it's awesome. The book just released 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And before we get into it, the first question we always ask is, what is your heritage?
I'm Puerto Rican.
Same. We're both Puerto Rican.
Awesome. And how do you feel after this awesome, like, halftime show?
It was amazing. And I'm also tired.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It was really incredible. And it's, I think, very sad and totally unsurprising the kind of backlash that it's getting. There was backlash before the show, there's backlash after the show, and it's just another attempt to take away any of our cultural pride and joy, and like we just can't let that happen.
For sure. Well, and I think he is such an example of not letting that happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's right.
Through the music, through the people that he brings on, through the storytelling of it.
Right.
It's like we can just keep listening to the music, keep dancing, like he says, the world will dance.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you do any watching parties?
I just watched in my house with my family.
Chilling.
Yeah.
We have a thing in my house that we started a few years ago where we make food based on which team we think is going to win, like the food from their place. And then like we just hang out, just us. But this year we made Puerto Rican food because we didn't want to eat Seattle food and we didn't want to root for the Pats.
Yes. Yes, makes sense.
Even though we're in Massachusetts. So we ate Puerto Rican food and just hung out. It was really fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and I just stayed home, and Petra and I were writing from like the second the show happened. So we were both invited to parties and had to sadly decline, but it was worth it because the end result was like a Rolling Stone article breaking down the show and our opinion piece in the New York Times. And had we gone to a party and enjoyed that, we would have never gotten those publications out. So it was worth it.
No. Okay, so you both celebrated. Did you cry? I have to ask that question. There's so many videos.
I'm not much of a crier. I did not cry, but I don't really cry very much.
I didn't cry either. I just was like, I was kind of like overcome with like emotion, and I definitely had chills. I had chills when he started El Apagón and he came out with the flag, and then like that whole entire scene, I just like had chills. And honestly, I was kind of more in shock.
Yeah, that's how I felt too.
I felt like I was in shock and like watching my kids watch it and like watching it and just going, oh my God, and this and this. Like I just was like, it was like massive overwhelm in a good way, but also just like intense.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
When you were working in a way.
Yeah.
You had to write about it.
Well, but we both had told ourselves, I think, Petra, right, that we were just going to watch it and not like just kind of watch it and experience it and then go back to it afterward.
Right. I didn't take notes the first time I watched it.
But I had my notebook next to me and I told myself I wouldn't. But then I was like writing stuff down because I knew I was going to go back to it. But I just was like, I don't know. It was just like my knee-jerk reaction was like, I have to write it down.
First impressions.
I think it was because of the overwhelm of like, oh my God, there's so much stuff. Like, what if I watch it and then I don't see what I just saw because every time we're seeing something different? I don't know. But I like couldn't help myself.
There's a lot. I've watched it twice at this point. And there's more stuff that I'm seeing.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was so much happening.
So much happening, which like goes back to his intentionality and everything that he creates.
Right.
But first, I want to talk about both of your experiences as Latinas in academia before we get into the book.
How much time do we have?
I know. I know. Which in your questionnaire, Petra, you said, as quote, as Latinas in the academy, we're always undervalued and profoundly underrepresented. Research shows we are presumed incompetent. And so when I read that, I had to dig into the study and I went into it. And there was so much information. They wrote 2 volumes.
Yeah, there's 2 books, Presumed Incompetent, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Yes, that's right.
For both of you, as Latinos in academia, how have you experienced this? Because I've heard so many horror stories. I don't know if I've ever heard one like, this has been a walk in the park
No,
at all.
No.
that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different layers, right? So, I mean, one question that I've gotten a lot, like from students, is like, what is it like to be the only one? And that has sort of mildly been my experience because I am in an ethnic studies milieu. And sometimes there aren't other Puerto Ricans, but there's other Latinas, or there's generally other people of color, right? So, like in my current department, there's a Filipina faculty member, there's an African American. So, like, I'm in more diverse spaces, I think, compared to other faculty in like history or mathematics or something like that, right? So, that's like one thing. But nevertheless, I think, people of color and women of color in particular are very undervalued and underrepresented at universities. And then on top of that, even within fields like Latino studies, like the study of popular culture, writing a book about a person like Bad Bunny, who is enormously popular, but is still not taken seriously as an object of study or something worth analyzing. So I mentioned that to say that, like, there's even within our own discipline, right? Like there's a lot of challenges um, that that range in lots of different ways.
Mm.
So I think it's challenging, but it's also fun. Like I also do it because I really love it. Like I can't think of another job that I would rather do, and I try to cultivate spaces that I want to be in and just stay in them. It's sort of my survival strategy to the extent that I can. But it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I've been in like lots of different kinds of departments, and my PhD was in anthropology, which is like, as a discipline, has a lot of issues. It's like grounded in colonialism. Like the first people who were like ethnologists were literally like, they consider like Spanish colonizers and their journals like the beginnings of the disciplines. It's like a very colonial discipline. Like historically, it's one where it's like white men go into the field of like black and brown people and they study them, but like black and brown people can't study themselves. And like it's a bizarre field that has evolved a lot. And so there, like, I understand why I went into it, but definitely going into it and doing the kind of work that I do, similar to Petra, but with like different kind of dimensions, was kind of like, well, you can't do this project, or you're too close to this project. This is too close to who you are. And so you can't study that. So, like, don't focus on Puerto Rico. Maybe you can do that later in your career when you learn how to study people more objectively. And I'm just like, okay. So I think for me, it's like grad school was traumatizing, like severe post grad school, like PTSD stuff. But like Petra, I think it's like finding your community. And for me, like what that has looked like is largely that community remains outside of academia, and within academia, the people who I find support in are other people who, like, academia is a means to do the things that we actually love about it, like Petra said, like creating innovative curriculum and like writing things that feel important to us, even if it's not super easy to get the support. And then having our hands in different things. And that's been really crucial. And I think most of the people who I kind of connect with in academia, it's like the academic world is not the be all end all. It's like a means to do these particular kinds of things that we value and that like insert our value into spaces where they're normally excluded. But like, we are not all in there. That like our whole existence isn't defined by that. We have all these other things outside of it, and we also want to kind of establish and stake our place this in the academy and in this field for legitimacy and for the purposes of documenting our history.
Yeah. And it makes me think of the few Latinas that are in academia. How, is there a sense of responsibility? Well, we're here, might as well just take it and run with it in a way that represents, supports the upcoming students. Because I remember when I was in college, I had one Latina professor, and she was a Spanish professor. And so, I looked for myself in mentors and leaders, and they didn't exist. And so how does it, is there this sense of responsibility for you when you see your students see you, okay, maybe they may not become professors, but at least you're paving the way in a way for them?
For sure. I mean, I teach at Wellesley College, which is a small liberal arts college, a women's college. Um, I've been here for 10 years. I think something that I'm very fortunate is, this is my second academic job, but I started when we had the first Black woman president. Her name is Paula Johnson. And I think President Johnson has done an exceptional job at diversifying the faculty.
Mm.
And so when you look at the younger ranks of faculty, so I was the last cohort that entered when she wasn't president. Her first year president was my first year on the faculty. Subsequent years, the diversity of our faculty and the younger ranks is really amazing, right? This year we tenured 5 women, and 4 of them were people of color, 1 Latina and 3 Black women. So I feel like I'm in a particularly unique place in that right now I have an administration in my university that really values this and wants to protect it, at what they've built. It's also a university with a lot of resources. And so what that means is, whereas I taught at a public institution before, Wellesley is significantly more diverse because the financial aid packages are amazing. So I have a lot of low income students of all different backgrounds. I have a lot of international students. The numbers of Black and Latino students are going down since the affirmative action case, but it's still a very diverse university, college. And then the last thing is, one of the things I really enjoy about the type of institution I teach at is there's no graduate students and our classes are very small. That's why you're in this tiny liberal arts college. And so I get to cultivate a lot of relationships with students and see them over the years. I mean, Vanessa and I have been going around talking about our book, and I had 2 of my former students at a book event in Chicago, 1 of my former students at a book event in Puerto Rico. So it's really nice to see them and to have those relationships with them. Whereas when I was in a public institution that ostensibly is supposed to be for the people of the state, in that case it was Virginia, our Black and Latino population was very low, not at all representative of the population of the state. Our classes were very large. And so it was really hard to cultivate those relationships with our undergraduate students. So I feel like I kind of hit the lotto in many ways. And university presidents usually don't last much longer than 10 years. 10 years is already pretty long. So I don't know if President Johnson leaves, if the whole vibe will change, but for the time she's been here, it's been really nice for me. But I realize that my experience is very unique compared to many other people, including some of my colleagues at Wellesley. So I have colleagues at Wellesley who are before you came here, it was like hell on earth. And there were 3 people of color. And so I came in at just the right time. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Vanessa?
I mean, I think there's a huge responsibility and sort of pressure when you're the relative to our population, the most underrepresented demographic in higher education. We as a demographic are the most underrepresented relative to the US population. And it's okay, well, when you take that into consideration, it's every move we make is consequential. And it feels that way, right? Because it's such a small number of us, because we are under a magnifying glass all the time. And I think because of it, like the standards we're held to are different, and also the kind of ability to diminish our work is also heightened because it took so much to get us here. We're already presumed incompetent. And then it's kind of like no matter what we do, it's not, it's just like the valuation of it is always, it's always minimized. And so it's like this process of knowing like I jumped through all these hurdles, and at the end of it, I'm still going to have to keep kind of like vying for my place here. And so there's like, it's just this constant like hamster wheel type thing. But also because we fought so hard to get here, it's not something you're willing to just get off for just whatever reason. And then yes, like for many of our students, we might be the only Latina professor they ever have. Like that it does make a difference. I mean, my first year in college, I had a Latina professor my very first day in school, and like I wouldn't be here talking to you if it weren't for her. Shout out Arlene Davila. Like seriously, if I hadn't walked into her classroom, I know that my trajectory would have looked different, because it was that feeling of walking into a space, feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling understood, feeling represented, feeling that you can see yourself in that. And I'm like definitely someone who doesn't think that representation is like the answer to everything. There's a lot of really horrible people who are Latino or other backgrounds that are underrepresented. Shout out Marco Rubio, for example. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many horrible people who unfortunately represent us in these spaces. And yet I still understand the value of representation when we're actually like doing the work. And so, yeah, it feels very consequential.
Yeah. And like when you mention the bad people, like the bad apples of the representation, it makes me think this is why we need more, because we're not singled out into like, oh, well, that's a bad person.
Well, even when we teach about pop culture, I think that's like one of the things that comes up when we talk about representations of Latinos. It's like, oh, well, then so you're saying like we all have to be doctors and we all have to be lawyers. And it's like, no. I'm like, fine, you can have a movie about a drug cartel. Like you can have that. But is it only that? Like, is it only criminals? Is it only undocumented people? Is it only people involved in the drug deal? Like, why can't there be something for everyone? And it's kind of like, it's really the same issue with representation in every sphere. Of course, like there's Latinos are of all different ways of thinking. It's not just like we can look very different. We also can think very differently. We're not a monolith. And so that's fine. But can we have more representation so that there's space for these variations to even have a voice?
Totally. And on that same note of the representation and being presumed incompetent, also I think of, to bring it back to Bad Bunny, and how I think of the moment when he was with Kendall, how all of the pictures were happening. And you mention it. But when he has a Puerto Rican girlfriend, like nobody cares. The media doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so
or even when he was alone, right? Like that's part of the story in the book, right? Is that the paparazzi is like a picture of him, and this is 2023, right? When we like about to headline Coachella, like the biggest, most streamed star, alone walking, he's not valuable unless Kendall is with him. So I think it's like, it's not just that he doesn't have a Puerto Rican girlfriend. It's just like him himself is completely devalued without the presence of Kendall Jenner in that story. I mean, I think that story is really important. It's like one of the more important stories in the book, because I think, we talk about in the book in that moment that is simultaneously mainstream and marginalized. And I think we see that over and over again. We see it in the Super Bowl backlash, right? I mean, if you look at some of the responses immediately after the Super Bowl, including that of President Trump, that that was just sort of like a long list of stereotypes of Latinos, right? I was like, you could have watched the halftime show. You could have watched West Side Story. You could have watched like 1,000 other things. When my first response when someone read that to me was like, I bet you didn't even like, you don't even have to watch the halftime show to write this response, because it's just like a litany of stereotypes.
Same. Yeah.
And so even now, like, where, I mean, who knows, because this guy keeps like upping the ante. Every time I think it's like the peak, there's another peak. So maybe this is peak, who knows? But even at this incredible moment, he's still, you know, like not taken seriously, right?
Yeah.
Within the mainstream US.
I think it's just this idea that when it comes to Latinos, right, it's, as Petra mentioned, you can reel off a list of stereotypes. And like I said, my initial reaction to the Super Bowl, like for me, I'm overcome. It's overwhelming. It's incredible. We're watching our kids see Spanish and the Puerto Rican flag and these symbols they recognize, and feeling like joy and representation in the most positive sense. And also like knowing, here we go. Like, here we go. We already knew it. We knew that before he took the stage, because to Petra's point, it could have been, no one had to watch the Super Bowl to write the kinds of critiques that are coming out. They could have watched any representation. And at the same time, before there was a halftime show, we already had all these same critiques.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the show at any point. Throughout this entire thing, it has been about who is performing.
Yeah.
And anyone who says otherwise is completely in denial. The reality is that whether Bad Bunny performed in English, whether he performed the Star Spangled Banner, whether he performed a cover of, I don't know, Kenny Chesney, like, it doesn't matter what he did, he was going to get the same backlash. And we've seen that time and time again. I think we write about it in the book. We've written about it in opinion pieces. Jose Feliciano sings the national anthem in the 60s. What happens? Oh, you should deport him. He's insulting our, national anthem. Mark Anthony performs God Bless America. Oh, why is a Mexican singing our song of America, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you do. The critique is based on the idea that Latinos are interchangeable, are undocumented, don't belong, perpetual foreigners. They're from this generic region south of the border, and it doesn't even matter which country, because they're all the same. We've seen this replicated over and over again. And that is also why when he shouts out the countries, when he shows the flags, when he's speaking in Puerto Rican Spanish, when we see these iconic moments, not just of Puerto Rican culture, but of lots of different kinds of Latin American and Caribbean cultures, that it's like, no, not only are we not interchangeable, we have distinct cultures, we have distinct dialects, we have pride, and like he said at the Grammys, and we're human, right? And we're American. Like, all of these things seem so basic. And yet, as we can see, based on what happened, they are so far from basic to the general public. So far from it.
Yes, so far. Oh, so much. Well, I haven't opened the book to get my notes, but because there's so much into this.
Okay.
Well, let's take a coffee break, a real quick coffee break, and let's come back to the book and the course and all the things.
Sabrosura pa' ti que qué.
Said, do you drink coffee?
I love coffee.
You're Puerto Rican,
love
so
it.
I'm like,
I love it. I'm the kind of person who has to spend an entire hour drinking mounds of coffee before I can talk to another human in the morning.
oh, so you're like,
That
don't
is
talk
me.
to me. I haven't kicked, my coffee hasn't kicked in.
Absolutely. That is me. I have friends who literally just have coffee makers for the one time I visit them every year. Anyway, go ahead, Vanessa.
No, it's true. Like, Petra will wake up, like, we both wake up really early, even though we're on opposite coasts. Like, our schedules aren't even that different because I wake up so early. But Petra is like up early, and like when we've traveled together, it's like it'll be like 5:30, and she's like, I need coffee. I'm like, okay, all right, here we go.
PM?
No,
AM.
Oh, AM.
No, like, we got up. It's
my sister-in-law sometimes, at one point, she had a coffee maker like in her bedroom. And I was like, oh, that's so much. Like, that's a lot. But now I'm like, oh, she has a point. Like, what if I could just roll over and press the button and not even leave my bed?
You
like,
could get one with a timer. Like, we have one with a timer.
I have one with a timer. Yeah. But I could also just have it on my bedside table
Yes.
like she used
Just leave it programmed.
I am like, what's a good word to describe the kind of coffee drinker I am? I'm a coffee drinker based on where I am geographically. And by that, I mean that
Oh,
typically I drink coffee when I'm in the Caribbean. Like
okay.
if I'm in Puerto Rico, I drink coffee every day, but it's because if I walk in and I say café con leche, I know that they're going to give me exactly what I want, and I
Yeah,
don't like having to explain it because I don't even quite know what it is. I just know that whatever they're going to give me is exactly how it is.
that's it.
And then I've spent a lot of time in Cuba, and so a little cafecito, like that.
Oof, yeah.
Anytime if you offer me a cafecito in the little cup, like that is going down, like for sure. But when I'm here, I'm like a every now and then I'll have a coffee if someone brings me a special coffee. But like other than that, I'm drinking for the most part here, I'm drinking tea except for on like special occasions. But when I'm in the Caribbean, it's
That's
coffee
your time.
at least once a day, but it's done just right. And also Puerto Rican coffee is super low acid, which is really important because like I don't like high acid coffee. And like Puerto Rican coffee, it's like I know it's gonna be perfect. So
Mm,
that's the kind of coffee drinker I am. So I have some tea with me right now.
nice, nice. I am not a time to drink coffee anymore. My cutoff is noon. I mean, I don't know. I feel like listeners will be like, sometimes you say 11, sometimes you say 1. I don't know. We'll keep it in the middle.
Lunchish time.
Yeah, around that
Yeah,
time. Like
me
before I
too.
eat lunch, like
Yeah.
that's my cutoff. But I've been drinking coffee with so my mom she got into bees. And so we have local honey
How
and
nice.
I put honey in my coffee
Oh.
and I just kind of like started doing it because we had it. But then I stopped doing it because I just didn't like, I don't know, I stopped. And I got allergies. And so,
Oh.
From
yeah.
not having the honey?
Yep.
What?
And so I got, because the honey, local honey, it's the plants from like this
Yeah.
region. And so what I started putting honey in my coffee again, and now I have no mocos.
Fascinating. Well, right, honey has a lot of like,
It's magical.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, honey is like a natural everything, right? I don't know.
Yes.
For sure.
Everything.
Yes.
Like people have used it for
It's
burns.
like Vicks. It's like fucking Vicks.
Yes.
It's like, do you have honey or Vicks or both? Put that on there
You're
and
set. Yes. For sure. For sure. Awesome. Well, let's get back to the show. Here's the thing. Latina families have been saving money forever. From reusing plastic containers for comida, folding up plastic bags under the sink, and diluting dish soap with water. The last thing we need is to pay fees to access our money, right? Pues, in case you didn't know, BMO customers have access to 40,000 fee-free ATMs across the United States. Plus, their BMO Smart Advantage checking account has no monthly maintenance fee. Learn more about how BMO can help by visiting bmo.com/checking. bmo.com/checking. Conditions apply. Accounts provided in the United States by BMO Bank, NA member FDIC. Do you ever feel like money's supposed to make you feel free, but instead it just makes you feel like a fraud? Like, you should already know this stuff. Investing, retirement, debt. But you're still Googling, what's a Roth IRA like it's a secret society? Let me unmute that real quick. Savvy Ladies is a nonprofit that gets it, and they're not here to shame you. They're here to support you. They've got a completely free financial helpline where real humans, real experts give you answers without judgment. Whether you're navigating money wounds, dreaming of building wealth, or just trying to make sense of your paycheck, this is your safe space. No sales pitch, no confusing jargon, just real talk, real help, for free. Because financial confidence isn't just about numbers. It's about knowing you're not alone anymore. Head over to savvyladies.org to learn more. That is SAVVYLADIES.org. So Petra, you started with teaching a course. So first of all, we already talked about academia and how hard it is for Latinas to be there. How, and I mean, probably it's circumstantial, like the college that you're a part of, that you were like, let me just do this. But what was the seed that was planted that you were like, we need to talk about this because it's deep enough, it's academic enough, or more like it's a big deal that we need to learn about it?
Yeah. Well, my first book, which came out in 2015, is called Remixing Reggaeton, and it's like a kind of like racial history of reggaeton up through Gasolina. Um, and so I already, I have been studying reggaeton for a long time. Um, and also generally, it's not just Bad Bunny. It's like the whole genre is not taken seriously as an object of study. But I did it anyway, and I taught a course on Latin music in the United States. And there was a time period around when Bad Bunny's first album came out that no matter how many artists I exposed my students to, what genres, we would talk about banda, norteña, balada, bachata, whatever. We talk about everything. No matter what, 75% of the class is going to write a paper about Bad Bunny. So that was happening. And then I also was one time taught a seminar about Puerto Rico, and it enrolled like 6 students. And so, one of the things about the like sort of corporatization of higher education is if you have a class that doesn't have that many students in it, they don't want you to teach it very often because they want to have as many students in the seats as possible. So I had this idea, like I was sad that I wasn't teaching that course anymore. And so I had the idea of putting Bad Bunny on my Puerto Rico course because his music, his life story, the types of things he talks about, to really understand them, you have to understand this longer history of Puerto Rico, right? That's the argument we make in the book. And that comes from my approach to the class. So as soon as I did that, the class filled up, and it's been filling up, ever since. So that is really where the idea came from, was to, I believe as an educator, something that is really important is to meet students where they are. And I think when you want to talk about questions like race, gender, sexuality, giving students something they're already familiar with to as like a point of departure is really effective. And I think a lot of our students, a lot of my students are first gen students. Many of them feel intimidated by the sort of New England liberal arts college environment. And so bringing in something that they already have a lot of opinions about, and actually those opinions are very academic opinions, right? Like I watched this music video and I analyze, and like with my friends, we're talking about this and that. So it's sort of like meeting them halfway, giving them this language and this lens through which they can analyze things they're already doing, right? And I think that's what makes pop culture in general a very effective teaching tool. And so, that is how we use Bad Bunny in the course. But it really came from this combination of being like, oh, they like, I have to be honest, like when Bad Bunny first came out, I thought he was fine. He was definitely not my favorite, but I was like, but they like him, and I want to teach Puerto Rico, so I'll do it. And so I started teaching that. I proposed the course. You have to propose the course the year in advance. And then the first time I taught it was in 2022.
So 2021, that's when you proposed it, and then launched in 2022.
Yeah, and then I did it in 2022.
And then she taught it in 2022. And shortly thereafter, I was on the books to teach my class the following year. And I was looking up other professors' syllabi. I was looking up like reggaeton courses or Puerto Rico and like different stuff. And I came across Petra's course listing. And so she and I had like met a few times. We had presented at like a panel together. And I taught her work in my class. So I reached out to her and just said, hey, I'm organizing a Bad Bunny class. I saw that you taught a Bad Bunny class. So we had like a Zoom meeting and we just started like sharing ideas and thinking like, oh, well, maybe we can collaborate. And so it started with like her sending me her syllabus, me brainstorming what I was going to do and how to organize a class. And then the next time we met, I think it was the very next time we met, I said, well, what if we do a website like the Puerto Rico syllabus, but Bad Bunny, and we put all these resources together. And that was, and it was like I want to say slow, but it wasn't. We met in the summer of 2022, and then we started compiling all the materials, and we got like research assistants to help. And then, we were wrapping that up at the end of the year. I started my class January 2023. We launched the website right before his historic Grammy performance, and that first time he was nominated for Album of the Year, first Spanish album ever. We launched the website right about then, right before the Grammys.
Perfect timing.
And then at that point, we had started talking about a book, but we weren't entirely sure what that looked like. And then it just kind of went from there. By summer 2024, we had really committed to writing this book, and we wrote it together fast and furiously, and it's been nonstop, but it's because the cultural moment is so intense. And I agree with everything Petra said about the education component and meeting students where they are and getting students motivated to learn about Puerto Rico. And most students who come in the class, even when they're Puerto Rican, they haven't gotten this history. And a lot of them are they're blown away, they're angry. I mean, you should see my students' faces when I tell them about the sterilization of Puerto Rican women, or you should see my students' faces when they even learn about something like the gag law that made it illegal to have a flag in your own home. They're just how is this legal? Why didn't we know this? And none of them would be in the classroom if it weren't for Bad Bunny. And so that's when people think oh, do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Are you profiting off of Bad Bunny and exploiting him? Well, I'm not profiting off of Bad Bunny. I have to teach classes no matter what. But at the end of the day, his music is about educating people on Puerto Rico with all of its complexities. And we're able to use his music to do that. We're able to use his music to organize courses that motivate students to learn stuff that they normally wouldn't. And I think that's it's incredibly powerful. It makes me like him more as an artist because it's so much more than the music. It's so much more than that. And so people are often what do you do in the class? What do you do in the class? It's if you go to our website, it's race and gender in
right
Puerto
there.
Rico, sexuality, LGBTQ activism, Hurricane Maria, crisis of infrastructure. This isn't just everyone's hanging out partying. This is rigorous curriculum. It is extremely rigorous. And frankly, if you want to understand Bad Bunny's music, if you actually want to understand Bad Bunny's music, it's also rigorous. It requires study.
It does. I've had to read lyrics multiple times because it's even for me, just as a listener that's been to his concerts and listens to him, it's study. It truly is because you watch the videos, El Apagón. When I watched it, I cried so much. There's so much depth into it, and then there's the dissection of okay, let me now read the lyric because I'm also Mexican, so I there's some words that I'm when I went to Puerto Rico, they would laugh at me all the time because I would say things that they're yeah, we don't say that here. That's a bad word here. And I'm well, I don't know. And so there's also this interpreting of and so much depth to it, 100%.
Yeah.
It's so good. So one thing that you wrote in the book is that Bad Bunny transforms grief and pride into a sonic archive of resistance. Tell us more about that.
I think that line is it's a perfect line because I think it's evocative of the message of the book.
Yes.
And the message of the book is, there are several, but in a nutshell, it's it's not just that you can't understand Bad Bunny or his music or anything that he does as an artist without understanding the history of Puerto Rico. And I think if that wasn't clear before, it's clear now than ever, now that we saw the Super Bowl performance, right? Where all these people who had not been exposed to him go, oh my gosh, there's clearly all of these meanings here. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But one thing is clear is the messaging there was a lot of historic reference. There was a lot of educational components. And so that's part of it, right? Is if you actually want to understand Bad Bunny, if you want to understand how we got to this moment with him as the world's biggest star, you have to understand these key moments in Puerto Rican history. So that's part of it. And the other part of it, right, is our subtitle, How He Became the Global Voice of Puerto Rican Resistance, which is because if you look at the way that music has been used as a form of resistance throughout Puerto Rican history, you also can really see the direct lineage of kind of what he's emerging from in terms of the genres that he came up in terms of the genres that he references. And this is throughout Puerto Rican history, music being used as as a center point for building community, for building movements of resistance, and also for cultivating joy. Like there's a lot of critique I see right now about like, oh, he left out the politics in favor of just like joy and partying, and like, or that's like from the like kind of easy side, and the other side is like, well, he should have been doubling down on politics. It was too much, it was too frivolous. And it's like missing the entire point that these things are inextricably linked, and not just right now, but throughout the entirety of Puerto Rican history. You actually don't have resistance movements without the music, without the community, and without the bits of joy that those things brought in order to work towards change. And that's really like the through line. And Bad Bunny is incredibly consistent as an artist, which is part of the reason why it was so easy to do this work and make these connections. Because yes, if there is one thing about Bad Bunny, he's meticulous, but this man is consistent. It's all part of the same story. It's very clear.
Yeah. And he said that he wants to take your course.
Yes,
So
that's right.
I think he approves.
He said he would get an A. That's always our joke. We're not sure. Because, well, I mean, because I think, but for real though, like, because the class deals with all of these issues, right? Like, and I have to say, like, academia is not on the pulse of what's popular, right? And so when I first developed my class, there was nothing for me to assign to my students that was an academic analysis of Bad Bunny, right? Now there's more scholarship. There's obviously our book, there is an edited volume, there are a handful of journal articles, but academic publishing is slow and once it gets accepted, it takes a very long time to come out. And so I say that to say, like, the types of materials the students, there are whole weeks where they don't read anything about Bad Bunny. And that's why when he says he would get an A, sometimes I'm like, well, it's not always about you actually in this class. You still have to read a book. But I think he said that was very exciting. He was on Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon asked him, and they named our two courses by name because our two courses are the first two. Now there's Bad Bunny courses at Yale, at Georgetown, at Emory, at like a whole bunch of different universities.
Princeton.
But mine was the first and Vanessa's was the second. And I think, so, I recorded Jimmy Fallon because I don't want to stay up till midnight.
Right.
And I woke up and I just remember very vividly the next day, I wake up early to get my children to school, and I have like 1,000 emails from my students. And one of my students, I remember hers very well because the title of the email was just, and I was like, oh my God, what happened to her? And then I opened it. That was the first one I opened because it was like, and then it was like, oh my God, it's on TV. And I was like, what is she talking about? And I was like, really weird. I was like, I have no idea what this is. And then I went and I got my coffee, and then I looked at the other emails, and I was like, oh, our class is on TV. And it was wild. Like, I could not believe that he talked about her classes.
It's so cool.
And he talks about the students who said, we're taking a class about you. And that's Vanessa's student from like Intro to Latino Studies who met him at wrestling.
And showed him she actually just texted me like last week, and she was like, I was looking back through my like pictures from freshman year, and I saw like this video of Bad Bunny scrolling through my phone when I was showing him your syllabus.
The syllabus?
She literally, I thought it was on April 1st, 2023, and I thought I was getting an April Fool's joke because my student emailed me and was like, send me your Bad Bunny syllabus right now. And I was like, what? She's like, I'm meeting Bad Bunny right now and I want to show him your syllabus. And I'm like, what is she talking about? So I send it to her. I send her the link. I send her my PDF, and I'm like, what is happening? And then later on, I get these messages of videos of him scrolling through going, wow, that's incredible. That's crazy. And I'm like, what?
That's awesome.
That was so exciting. And then, yeah, and then Jimmy, it was like, it just is really fun.
So he knows about the classes. He's been forced to review in front of
Yes, yes, and it seems like he approves. Um, but it makes me to bring it back to both of you in academia. I do want to ask this because I see this a lot with Latinas. I think I see it less, but it still happens that because we're often the firsts, then I see it a lot from older, probably because of like historical stuff. But when like you ask for help, they're like, "Oh no, you have to earn your stripes," so kind of like not help. Did you like? Obviously, you didn't do that because you were both like, "Let's help each other, let's build it." But is that something that's come up?
Well, I mean, I think like academics are people and there are different ways of managing things, but I think one of the things that makes our project special is the collaborative nature, which is discouraged by this industry, right? Like forget that personalities, the system that we work in,
Yes.
this in our field discourages this type of info sharing and collaboration. And there is increasingly an emphasis on being this kind of entrepreneurial academic who becomes a brand in and of themselves. And in order to do that, you have to be like singular. And I think our work, one of the reasons we've been able to do these projects so quickly is because we work together, we share information, we share sources, we support each other. Um, and we're in constant communication about our projects and, you know, and I think respect each other. And I think that's really important. And um, so I would say that, for me, like people are like, how did you write this book so fast? Because we did it together, right?
Mhm.
Like there's no way I could write a book in 6 months. And, the ideas and knowledge and strategies Vanessa has for reaching out to people and things like that are different from what I have. And so together we kind of can like we work better together, right? So I think right now, since our book just came out and the Grammys happened and the Super, all of these things are happening, like there's a lot of celebration of us working together. But in general, as a system, higher
Yes.
education is not into that. And it's, it is a little field specific. Like if I were a scientist in a lab, I would write a paper with like 15 other people. But in the kind of humanities, qualitative social science fields that we're in, it's unusual to do a collaborative book project. But I really do believe firmly that if either one of us had written this book by ourselves, it would not be as good of a book. Like just point blank, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's been like something that I think we've kind of meditated on throughout and getting to this point. Like I said the other day, like we're so tired, we're so burnt out. We've been like going, but also like at the end of it, like the being able to share in the work and then being able to share in the results make it so much better. Like
Mhm.
everything is a communal celebration. None of it
Mm.
is like, "Oh, look, I got this accolade or I'm on this media or whatever." It's all like, "Look what we did together."
Together.
And
Yes.
that's been the whole process. And you
Yeah.
know, I yeah, it's not it makes the project so much better. It just wouldn't like and the cool thing about it, and like we've talked about, like she and I were not best friends. Like this wasn't like, oh, I want to work with my best friend and we want to spend all of our time together. I talk to Petra literally more than anyone else in my life, like all the time. Like anyone else, like literally since our conversation in 2023, I talked to Petra more than anyone else, and it's been 3 years almost since we started this intensive collaboration. No, 4. Oh my gosh, 2022.
Or
It's been 4 years.
You're right. We're going on 4 years.
And like it's kind of crazy. It's like we just it has all been as seamless as a collaboration could possibly be, and I think that it shows like what's really possible when people come to the table with the same values and the same interests. And it doesn't mean we're the same people, but like our goals are in line, our priorities are in line. And so look how much you can do when you actually have a team, when you actually are working towards the same goals. And like neither one of us is like doing any of this because of some grand expectation at the end. We're doing it because we actually really believe in what we're doing.
Yeah. And like that's, I think, the other part, right? Like the goal for me has not been to be a public academic, an entrepreneurial academic, a brand name. That has never been my goal. I think we share a goal of wanting to tell these stories because they're important to us. Like we, I'm sure it's the similar for you, Vanessa, but like I went to college wanting to learn this stuff because I didn't learn it before. And I was looking for places and professors and classes that were going to let me focus on the things that spoke to me and that I cared about. And, going back to one of your very first questions, Pam. So, like, one of my one of the reasons I value being a professor is I can do that for my students too. And part of that isn't just teaching in courses, it's also the types of things we write about. And, we dedicated our book in part to our children, and it's because we want them to have access to this information that, I had access to some of it growing up, but not through my school, through my family when they wanted to tell me information. But they don't know some of the nitty gritty of this stuff either because they don't even teach it in Puerto Rico, right? So, like, I think that's the other part about this project is that we are motivated by wanting to share the information and share these stories, and not because we want to like be popular people who are riding a Bad Bunny wave. It's just kind of happened all at the same time by coincidence in many ways, right? Like the book was going to come out. Books, once the books get approved, it takes forever for them to actually become a thing. And it just happened that then the Super Bowl announcement happened. So, but like that's what we want is, and when I describe the book, I tell people like, you're going to learn about Bad Bunny, but really you're going to learn a lot about Puerto Rican history. And that is ultimately what the story is,
For sure. Thank you for reframing the question. The question, yes, you reframed it because it was poorly asked of the systemic, like, expectation of individualism and like the collaboration. Yes, thank you.
And I'll just say one other thing real quick, because this is like clearly this is like a triggering topic for me. But what I will say is that systemic focus on individualism is also partly why there's so few of us in academia.
Yes.
Because once one person become like, then it's like, well, that's great. We have a famous Latina or we have a famous Black woman on our faculty and she's awesome. And therefore we don't need anymore. Right. And so the collaborative project and sharing of resources is really antithetical to the idea that you'll have that one representative is enough, right?
Correct. Yeah, because I've gotten it as a podcaster, and I've talked about this extensively, where they're like, "Oh no, we already have the Latina podcast," but then there's 30 other white girl podcasts, and so I'm like, "Why do you need one? We all have different voices."
And it's like literally every single industry has this. Authors talk, like novelists talk about it, actors talk about it. My friends who work in finance talk about it. Like
yes.
Everybody, and because that's how systemic racism works, right?
Right. It's throughout all of these institutions. And I feel like that's, part of what we've learned in this work, just about like about Latin music and the way the Latin music is treated within all of these industries. It's the same, like that's the thing, right? Is that what we see is that the kinds of institutional hierarchies and politics, like they're the same everywhere. And that's why all of this stuff, like we think of ourselves as like in line with what Bad Bunny's doing, because he's like, okay, I have this platform. I'm a musician. I'm really famous. How can I teach people? And we're like, okay, we have a classroom. We have rooms full of students. How can we teach people? How can we make change? Like we know that like the space, like back to that question about like the pressure you feel, you understand the gravity, you understand the consequences. And that's like one of the things that we understand in the classroom. And I think that's what we've seen Bad Bunny understand about taking a stage like the Super Bowl, taking a stage like the Grammys. He actually understands the gravity. He understands the consequences. He understands that he's representing an entire nation, an entire people. He's representing so much. The stakes are so high. And so we can't mess it up. We can't.
So good. Mic drop. We ran out of time. I have so many more questions. So, P R, where can we find it? Tell us, drop all the links. We'll have it in the show notes, but just
you can buy. I mean, it's for sale anywhere that you can buy books, and we encourage you to buy from a local bookstore. But there's bookshop.com and plenty of other places. Petra?
And also, I wanted to say it's also available in Spanish.
Oh,
So if you prefer to get a Spanish copy, you can do that. And the English audiobook will be out on February 24th. So
soon.
Eventually, if you would prefer to listen while you're commuting or whatever, you also will have that option.
I will encourage people to get both because you need to take notes. Like, this is not you go for a walk and you just listen. This is you sit down and it's the course. I was feeling like, oh my gosh, that's why I have so many notes.
It is the course, right? When people ask us, like, what do you learn in the class? We used to be like, well, you can go read the syllabus. And now we're like, you can go read the book. Like, that's what we're learning.
Yeah. Well, but it's the course. It's the course fortified with all of these interviews that like enrich everything we've taught before. And so like we're both teaching with the book for the first time. And it's really like I walked into class yesterday and it was wild to walk in. They had read the chapter about the 2019 protests, and it was the first time I walked into the class and I'm like, oh, they've already read about the meaning behind Afilando los Cuchillos. So like, I'm going to give them the lyrics and we're going to listen, but they just read a whole chapter about this song. So it makes teaching it really cool too. But yeah, I mean, I think anyone who reads the book is going to really feel kind of why we have the class.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would even say because I've heard people say, I don't understand the lyrics. I don't understand, so this is what they need to.
And badbunnysyllabus.com has all the lyric translations with footnotes to all the different cultural and historical references. So even if you're reading the book and you're like, okay, I want more detailed translations, that's there. We have a playlist for the song. That's awesome. It's on Apple Music. It's on Spotify. Eventually we'll get it up on Tidal, but it's the official FKN R playlist.
Nice. Last question. Do you have a remedy you want to share with us?
Can it be very, very specific? Like a specific remedy for a very specific problem?
Yeah, if you have one.
Because I have one, which is that, I get a lot of canker sores, gross. Chamomile tea is like amazing. You cool it off, you swish it in your mouth, you feel better.
Chamomile tea is pretty magical for a lot of things.
Yeah, for lots of things. But it's really good for canker sores. Just putting that out there.
That's a new one.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I feel like the other one is like yerba buena tea for everything.
I was chewing some yerba buena last night.
With like so much honey though. Back to the honey. So much honey.
It is a little bitter.
No, but just honey is like, it's so good in there. It's so good.
Yes.
I don't know. I'll give my kids like a spoonful of Manuka honey, just like here when they're like a little sick, but also tea.
Also tea, for sure. I even give my dog honey. And it helps with like his polyking.
Wow.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah. It sure is. Save the bees.
Yes, save the bees. Thank you so much for your work. It's extensive. I've studied you for like 2 weeks and it's still not like I still don't know enough. Still haven't gone through the course. So the book is awesome. Thank you for your work, for modeling what it's like to collaborate, what it's like to teach, what it's like to represent, what it's like to be proud, all of the things. And thank you for coming to Café con Pam.
Yeah, thank
Oh,
you
thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us. It was fun. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Bueno, that was my entrevista con Vanessa y Petra. Like, I frankly, I'm still processing because I could have talked to them for 3 more hours and I had so many questions written down. I got to 2. We barely scratched the surface. I would love to have them back. I don't know if they'll wanna come back because I think there's so much more. I mean, I wanna take their course, both of them. And what struck me the most wasn't their brilliance, though we know they're brilliant. It was their quiet exhaustion underneath it all. The way Vanessa said, grad school gave me PTSD, so matter of factly, and the way Petra talked about cultivating spaces she wants to be in just to survive. The fact that even now, with a book from Duke University Press, with Bad Bunny himself acknowledging their work, they're still having to justify why reggaeton is real academic knowledge and scholarship. And that is the thing about being presumed incompetent, which blew my mind when I learned about this. I read the paper. There are 2 books about it. You heard us talk about it. It doesn't go away with credentials because you can have a PhD from whatever Ivy League university you want to think about. You can write 3 books. You can be interviewed by the New York Times and people will still question you. They will still question if you belong. And what gets me is that they're not bitter about it. They're just clear-eyed and focused. They know the game. They know they're changing what counts as knowledge, one Bad Bunny course at a time. And then there's the Super Bowl moment. Watching them describe their reactions, the overwhelm, the chills, the shock of seeing Puerto Rico on the world's biggest stage. That is what this work is really about. It's about 128 million people seeing sugarcanes and knowing that is home. It's about kids watching with their parents and feeling pride, not shame. It's about watching the kid sleeping on the chair and being like, I was one of those at like the 1,000th get together or wedding or celebration. It's about the president being furious because visibility is resistance. These women are doing more than just studying Bad Bunny. They're documenting a revolution. They're creating an archive so that in 50 years, Puerto Rican kids will know their history. So that first gen Latinas in 2075 will be able to study whatever they love without apologizing. And that is legacy work. So, if this episode moved you, it moved me, as you can tell. Please share with your tia who still doesn't understand Bad Bunny but needs to understand why he matters. Share with your friend who's the only Latina in her department feeling like she has to prove herself every day. Share with anyone who's ever been told their culture isn't academic enough, their joy isn't serious enough, their voice isn't American enough. And of course, grab the book, FKN R, How Bad Bunny Became the Global Voice of Puerto Rican Resistance. It's available in Inglés y en Español. And trust me, it's going to be a book that you need to have a notebook right next to you because you will take notes. This is not just background noise. This is the course. You heard me say that to them. This is the revolution in 300 pages. Bueno. Como siempre, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, for choosing to grow with me, for believing that our stories matter just as much as anyone else's. I don't take your time for granted. If you're still here, I love you so much. Thank you. See you next week. Y como siempre, sigo leyendo. Café con Pam is created con mucho amor by our small but mighty team. Content production by Nancy Jaimes. Podcast management by Maru Linardi. Social media and marketing by Brenda Figueroa. And me, your host, Pam Covarrubias. To keep the cafecito brewing and the healing flowing, join the Supporters Club for only $5 a month and access early episodes, behind-the-scenes vibes, and exclusive minisodes you won't hear anywhere else. Screenshot this episode and tag me and share what resonated. I love seeing your takeaways. Follow on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's keep the conversation going with us on social media at Café con Pan Podcast because your voice always matters there. We love being on Instagram and Facebook. Gracias for listening to Café con Pan, a Spread Ideas Move People production. For more episodes, guest info, or resources, visit cafeconpam.com. And if you're healing from calladita culture and don't know where to start, you can take the quiz. cafeconpam.com/quiz for tía wisdom and cariño just for you.
Sabrosura pa' ti que